Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to the recording of Marketing Scoop, episode 19 of Series 2. This is an unusual day for us to be doing this on. We're doing it on a Friday. We're doing a recording of a Friday. The audio podcast will get released as usual on the Wednesday of next week, actually. But it's nice to see quite a few people interacting in the chat already, quite a few people there. If you're there in the chat, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where in the world are you watching us from? Are you an SEO? Are you into other areas of digital marketing? And are there any questions that you want to ask specifically about how to ramp up your organic traffic? Because that's really what we're going to be covering in this particular episode of Marketing Scoop. I'll just tell you a little bit about the podcast itself and how you can get watching it before we get going. Now, all you have to do is you go over to semrush.com/podcast if you want to find out about the podcast that we're going to be recording here, where you subscribe to it. There's links on that page. You see the link in the bottom of the screen there, semrush.com/podcast. There's links to iTunes, Android, all the different popular podcatchers that you can get. You should subscribe to that as well, because obviously if you can't watch us live in the future, it would be great just to be able to get the recordings in audio form. We've got loads of people joining us, as I say. We've got some people from Kansas City. Howdy. We've got Austin, Texas. We just got people in the States today. On Wednesday of this week, we did a recording. We had a few people in the Caribbean and South America, actually. But it's great just to get a feel for what you are up to, where in the world you're watching us from as well. We've got Montreal, Canada. We've got Greece. We've got Amsterdam, we've got India, loads of different places there. So wonderful to see so many different places mentioned in the chat there. Please keep on sharing and giving your thoughts in the chat there. I'll try not to be put off by too many comments that you share there. But if you can share any comments that in relation to what we're going to be talking about, growing your organic traffic, and any questions that you can share, we will try and cover during the whole show. So,
and of course, we've already had Louis Bernstein say he's excited to learn how to get 1,000 organic visitors to his site. So he's going for a more modest target on this one.
Indeed, yeah, no guarantees, but if anyone can help you, we can, or at least the guest today can, because he's now reached over 1 million organic visits per month. Pretty impressive there. So what we'll do is we'll get going with the proper introduction. That will include what we're going to be talking about and the guest itself. So here we go. Let's get going with that and start the show proper. Marketing Scoop Season 2, Episode 19. How TransferWise reached over 1 million organic visits per month. Broadcasting live on the Semrush YouTube channel, this is Marketing Scoop. I'm David Bain.
And I'm Judith Lewis, and welcome to the Semrush show that reveals the latest digital trends and technologies that impact your marketing strategy.
Together with industry experts, we delve into SEO advertising and content marketing to uncover the ultimate recipe for digital marketing success.
Well, let's meet today's guest. He's been online since the 56K modem, and he doesn't look a day over the 128, and into search engines, tech, and exchange rates. He heads up the organic growth in SEO for TransferWise. Welcome to the Scoop, Fabrizio Ballarini.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much for joining us, Fabrizio. We said at the start of the show that you've helped TransferWise reach over 1 million organic visits a month. How has that figure grown over the past few years?
So I guess we started, I would say 3 years ago now. It was myself and a couple of developers first in the team. And pretty much these figures are particularly for our content. And pretty much we started from zero. We had something like 15, 20,000 visits a month and a couple of articles performing tests. And we had no team. This content was there by accident. So we literally had no team when this started. Yeah.
Wow. So you've started from nothing and you've grown it up to over 1 million. Now, one of the most interesting things you mentioned earlier was that it was not It was branded traffic in the beginning, and this is growth in non-branded traffic. So to be specific, you've not looked at just increasing your brand awareness. You've looked at actually growing your non-branded traffic.
Yeah. I guess there's a bit of disclaimer, right? We started this when TransferWise was 4 years old. So we already had a very good product. We already had a very viral product as well. So a lot of our customers were recommending TransferWise to their friends, and therefore there was a lot of brand traffic when we first started this. But pretty much the website was one page and the home page and a couple of FAQ articles. So the website was not ranking for anything that wasn't branded. And I guess our objective as a team was not to necessarily increase the brand search, but just to increase our coverage on non-brand. And because we had other team working on the referral programs and other activities.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's to go up to 1 million a month is anyone's goal, I'm sure, especially some of the bloggers that I work with. That would set them up for life on ad revenue alone. Are there some big win keyword phrases that you're ranking for? Or is this traffic, is it just breadth of thousands of pages ranking for a few keywords, and each one brings in a little bit of traffic, and together they're giving you this big, huge number? Or is it like a few very, very highly performing articles and the rest just kind of really, really low?
I wouldn't say that there are necessarily specific keywords or specific articles. There are specific topics that are high performing within like a breadth of articles. I think one key element of like us growing, we started with a very authoritative domain, but again, we had no content. So a key element was just nailing the publishing element and the research, keyword research, publishing, and everything related to that. So most of the time we didn't necessarily, and even the 1 million kind of goal, that's the kind of random goal that we set ourselves at the beginning, what would be an ambitious number. But like in that sense, again, there was not a specific strategy to go after particular terms, also because on day one, beyond traffic, we didn't know what was converting, right? We didn't know what was actually driving customers. So we had to pretty much carpet bomb a bunch of topics, right? Hoping that this was going to work. And then slowly, the sooner we were getting content to rank and drive traffic and customer, we went there refining on topics and writing more about topics that were performing. And I guess we kind of iterated this process at scale now. Now we have like 10 plus people that are working on editing and publishing content. We have SEOs that look after these operations. So I guess now, what we kind of very like, with just a couple of guys started a few years ago, now is a little bit more organized and yeah.
So why did you actually put more focus on organic traffic after these 4 years of not doing that much with it?
I guess that like, the first 4 years of the company were, I was the second SEO person being hired. There was a guy that started the SEO team and then he moved on. And so again, I basically re-began with the program. And I guess there was not too much attention, mainly because to some extent, maybe the product wasn't there either, or like there were other channels that were like helping us to grow faster. So we received investment, we were scaling the company really quickly, and organic search is not necessarily the channel that can give you very fast and immediate results, right? So, but at that time we understood that it was important, so we decided to invest pretty much for the long run. And even when it comes to content, we are very focused on the long term, right? So every investment that we do, we judge performance and payback on a 12, 24 month basis, and then we iterate against those financial constraints. So you need to be convicted about, you need to have conviction around doing this for a good amount of time before you actually see results. The first 12, 14 months of producing all that content, it wasn't looking as rosy as his look is now, right? And then obviously,
how do you convince your senior directors that this is the right strategy and you should keep on doing that if you're not seeing results for that length of time?
I guess we are in a fairly privileged position because people here work as autonomous and independent units, right? With like a lot of ownership on things, so we don't have to justify pretty much anything. But obviously we have financial constraints as as a company to make sure that we're not burning cash for the sake of it. So it's not that we didn't have results, but at the beginning, like there was at least a good 6 months period where we were a little bit more relaxed about these results. And then from that point on, where content started to perform, being index rank, then performance is every article that we write now is backed up by us having a good understanding of that article producing X much growth, right?
I'd like to get a real good feel of the type of article that you tend to put together now that tends to be the most successful, because I read that you're now publishing roughly 300 articles per month. You're publishing in 5 to 6 different languages as well. So you've obviously got an incredible, well thought out process there. But in general, how would you actually define the most successful type of article that you do publish? What kind of length is it? What keywords are you targeting? How are you actually deciding what to write about?
So at some point after starting and testing various topics, you get to some confidence around like various topic and the impact of this keyword. So that was one way that we used to prioritize. You correctly mentioned, we published last year, I think, 1,300 articles out in 5-6 languages. Obviously, the more we scale globally, the more we can leverage insights from let's say English-speaking markets. So that is relatively easy. And then again, when it comes to keyword research and topic research, we work quite closely with most of our content team. Actually, their background is from our customers. They come from our customer support team, so they know the product quite well. And then equally here, we tend to work with various product team to figure out use cases that our customer look like. And then to answer your question regarding the length, we don't have very strict rule in that sense. Obviously, all our content is long form-ish written content, right? We write a lot of guides to educate people on various financial decisions that they need to make. But then we let editors and writers decide based on the topic, and just leveraging tool like Semrush to expand on related keyword, to expand on topics in a way that we kind of find the best tune for that given series of article. We probably look at length and type of content by topics and series, rather than saying, okay, everywhere on the blog needs to be 1,000 word, 2,000 word. Doesn't necessarily make sense. We have series of content that perform really well with not too much content. There are other topics where we need to write exhaustive guides on how to do, especially if you're filing taxes abroad, you eventually want to get it right. So we need to get someone who is expert about the subject matter and also write really exhaustive content in that sense. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So earlier you said you carpet bombed content, but really what you're doing is you're trying to add value to the reader, for the reader. You're trying to help them with an issue or a problem. Like you said, if you're filing taxes in another country, you do want to get it right. Are you targeting specifically things like rich snippets to get that position 0 to be the most useful and the most visible content producer out there? I think it's fascinating. There's no one length, and many bloggers out there who were probably hoping for your magic formula are now disappointed. But as far as rich snippets go, are you targeting those?
I guess there are a few flavors to that, right? So part of it is nailing the structure and nailing our editorial guidelines, so that from the very beginning we don't have to look back and check where these snippets are happening. Also because some of these results are very random at times, right? You test them one day something, the other day something else. Also, what we find out, this is not just about blog content, but across the entire site as well. We have certain components and certain markup that tend to get picked up better. So we know already that certain type of content needs to work with tables, certain type of content need to work with lists. So I guess over time you develop some kind of understanding, based on the content type, what are the guidelines for that given content types, and then we tend to working on those when we actually produce content, rather than looking back on like, we haven't gone back. Last year we published 1,300 article, and we haven't gone back and optimizing any single of them, to get a rich snippet, right? What has been published has to be good enough, or at this stage. I'm not saying that like we shouldn't, right? In terms of priorities, it wasn't making sense for us to do this yet versus publishing more content. But yeah, and like that's roughly the balance. I think like getting the guidelines right and getting the structure right, it really helps. Also because, imagine scaling this across like 10, 15 writers and then a network of freelancers. This could become very subjective, right? And what could be your way to optimize for this given like a snippet could, end up, people tweaking content over and over with maybe not achieving results. How do you test that the time spent on like tweaking this stuff is actually worth spending, right? Obviously, it depends on like your business. If you have a couple of articles, or if it's a small blog and you really want to focus on like a small number of keywords, yes, maybe you need to, be more careful and like curate every article to make sure that you nail feature snippet and stuff. If you're planning to like run operation at like larger scale, maybe less obsessed about getting every single snippet, which is good, right? I wish and I hope we do, but then like in terms of priorities, sometimes
it's incredible. You're not necessarily going back and re-optimizing things for rich snippets. You're publishing optimized articles, and that's what you're going forward with. But after all this time and all these articles, do you have a strategy in place to actually audit and remove old content?
I guess we get in there, right? So like when we started this, that wasn't a problem, right? Like every article was new, fresh, and correct pricing, correct information, and everything. We're feeling the pain of some of this stuff happening. Going forward, we are working with the other part of the team who is looking after the platform and products to make sure that like old content doesn't get outdated, and we don't have to manually update thousand of articles. Make sure that we have some kind of processes and like tools and widgets that will help us to keep stuff fresh, right? So that like the writer will focus just on the writing, and then whatever is the data that goes into an article, whatever is the call to action, pricing, whatever is up to date. And then like do we like basically kill old content? The answer is no at this stage, right? The reason why is that most of the content that we produce is pretty much meant to stay there evergreen, right? We haven't focused yet on seasonal or very one-off events in terms of like content. Everything that we do will need to perform in 12, 24 months time, so that we can justify so much investment into this. So again, like the day we will, as a team, tackle more fresh content, more stuff that is newsworthy, probably we need a plan for this. At this stage, we did kill only stuff that didn't perform, right? When I joined, this is one of the craziest example. We were ranking in position 2 or 3 for coconut water, right? Or something like that, a coconut water market. And we are a money transfer company, right? And so in that case, we decided that content was not adding customer, was not adding value. So that's where, that's the case where we kill stuff. But from that day, we, as a team, we put ourselves, a lot of rules to make sure that no one was ending up writing about coconut water anymore. We might in the future, right? But for the time being, I hope not. So in that case, I hope we don't kill stuff that we produce, because we invested money into that content, so it would be quite sad to do it. Yeah.
So we're getting quite a few comments and questions in the chat as well. Obviously, we're covering some of the questions that people are asking in the chat as well. Ryan Allen says, I'd like to know how large their content team is. Do you have your team all in-house there, Fabrizio, or do you use agencies? And how many people are actually actively working on the content each month?
Yeah, so we don't use agency at the moment, and initially the reason why we haven't decided to go down that path is just because as a company, we were growing so fast, and we were changing market and focus so fast that by the time we were briefing someone, it was basically time to move on something else. At the same time, it's painful to hire people and scale a team. So what we do, we have roughly 10-15 people part-time, full-time that edit, produce content, publish, proofread, do checks and stuff like that. And these are people that basically produce the content from beginning to the end of the cycle. And then these people work with a network of freelancers that have got expertise on a topic base. It's difficult to scale, especially languages as well. It's difficult to scale people that can write about travel and finance and various topics at the same time. So the actual writing is done by professional writers, and then the actual production is done by content editors. And then together with that, there are a few SEO who help like running more technical side of the program or looking at the economics of investment keywords.
And David saying in the chat, is there any content that you dynamically insert, such as exchange rates, other elements there as well? Do you have anything dynamic going on, or is it just fixed static content?
So a lot of components on the site, they are dynamic, but on the long form content that sits on the blog at this stage, there's not much dynamic yet, but we are about to build components and widgets for that. So I guess the answer is not everywhere, right? But on the long run, everything will have to be dynamic, right? So that we don't. Also, it's important to nail those things from a legal standpoint. From like, we don't want to say something that is not accurate and is outdated, no matter how much it was correct on a given date. So the view is like we're already working in that way as a team, to the point that we will have a set of APIs that can give us pricing data and like rate data and various type of financial information, and then we will have a set of like front end widgets that will basically be distributed across the experience, so that like even in articles, the article writer won't have to write the actual price, write the actual rate, but they will just insert like some kind of snippet that will do that function. Yeah.
Do you ever try to actually dynamically insert that kind of data into titles and meta descriptions? Like latest exchange rates, current exchange.
Yeah, we could like is technically possible. We already have components of the website where actually we generate titles and description dynamically, because they have structured, like they are very structured from an architecture point of view, so that we can predict what these are, differently from like articles where you could have any sort of title. The reason why we don't do it yet, even though sometimes Google is editing our snippet in search, the reason why we don't do it is because anyway there will be a caching and this will get old anyway. So in some cases we may want to do that, but then it depends how fast Google can keep up with that. So on some part of the site, probably what we will end up doing, because Google is already editing those type of titles and description by themselves, probably we will have some markup, and then we will try to figure out whether through logs and stuff they crawl this thing fast enough to realize the changes, right? At this stage, from what we have seen, is okay, but think about the exchange rate to convert money from like pound to euro, right? Is fine. Like if you look at on a yesterday again to today against yesterday. But if yesterday there was a Brexit vote, it might be a chance that we are like displaying very wrong information on search results. So it will probably help click-through rate, right? Regardless of whether what the information that we give in there is correct or not. But at the same time, we don't want to, trick people, by promise them amazing exchange rates, and then when they actually land on the page, so there's something different, and ultimately we won't get customers, right? So yeah, it's a tricky one. I think it's interesting, especially for companies who have got a lot of data on their sites. If Google can figure out how to get this data faster, and I guess that's what Google wants with structured data, with a lot of the initiative that they have, right? In e-commerce is basically the norm, right? To have price and like a lot of other information. You know, it's just some industry, you know, like ours, there's a little bit less, you know, ontology around that. The markup that have been approved are, you know, not so used. So I guess, you know, hopefully.
There's quite a few other questions coming in, quite a few relation to content. We've got Nissan that said, does thin content like Swift codes contribute to your rankings? So, I mean, that's kind of an interesting question, because I haven't seen it as much recently, but certainly maybe 5 to 10 years ago, many sites were ranking for terms like Swift code to certain country. Is that something that you're actively targeting?
So that is not necessarily content by itself, right? So you know, there are thousands of Swift codes out there, and we don't write about individual codes on like long form content, an article. We have a product that gives these codes, and I guess that, you know, the point around thin content is only down to Google's ability to understand the difference between various codes, right? So imagine you have like thousands of codes, they may look all the same. I don't think Google is particularly worried around, you know, the fact that on the page there's not too much content. If the information that someone is looking for is just one word, you know, that is good as it can be, right? You don't have to cook anything else on that page. Obviously, there are challenges when Google crawls, you know. So imagine we are giving 100,000 codes in 17 languages, and with various like categorization, there are a lot of pages that you could make, and in the order of millions. So there are some crawling challenges and some Google understanding and crawling all this. But then I don't think it's a matter of like being thin content. It's just the nature of that product. You know, there are many spammy websites that that eventually could go after this thing, but again, you know, it's just down to the owner of this site to give a good experience. It's not that, yeah, again, it's short content or long form content in this case. Yeah.
And you're really focusing on quality here. You're really focusing on helping the end user. We've had another question that's come in that I'm sure a lot of people will be thinking about, which is whether or not you have a checklist when you write the content of what has to be included in an article, especially from an SEO perspective.
Yeah, we do have some kind of structure. So part of like nailing with the publishing aspect is also being really organized and like, you know, nailing the operation of things, right? When you have to publish so much content, even ending up doing 5 reviews of the same article rather than just one can impact in months of like content being pushed out. So we do have the stuff. Actually, we built something like a Semrush as in the content template and the writing assistant plugin for Google Docs. So we had something along those lines, in a way that people had to consider related searches, had to consider top articles in the space, had to consider like a list of top keywords that we were pushing out. And then to the point that when we get to write a brief for any given article, we almost write the article. It's not that we actually write it, but we have like, is that there's a very strict structure that people need to follow. This again is to avoid having like hiccups in the operation, right? You don't want to get to submit to your freelance network like 100 articles and then come back everything but what you asked for in the first place, right? So again, we learned that the hard way, to the point that now we are very prescriptive in what we want, and that's why these guys that work on producing content, they almost make the article, I would say, right? So like the only aspect that they don't do is the writing, because they, you know, sometimes they're all native speaker in their given language, but they, you know, they're not professional writers, right?
So we keep on getting loads of great questions coming in the chat. I think we've only got room for a couple more in the podcast recording here. So I'll select one here, and that's about links, and then I'll hand over to Judith, who'll select the last one. So in relation to links, do you actually have an active link building strategy for your content, or is your domain powerful enough to be ranking by itself just with internal links and what you've got already?
Yeah, I guess we can probably save time for an additional question here, because we're not doing anything about links, and we're just publishing content. Luckily, when I joined, we had like 4 years of like very aggressive PR, advertising, and like our domain was relatively authoritative. And since we have been so focused in producing content, like we kept, the mood of making more and better content than working on links to eventually make this content rank better. So like, again, I'm not saying that is necessarily the way to go. It's just like in our particular case, that is the setup that we have, right? But obviously, depend on your situation, depend on like, if I would be starting like the same company with like a brand new domain, I would probably do something different. But at this point in, with the kind of setup that we have, no, we're not doing anything on that front. Yeah.
If you were starting with a brand new domain, what link building strategy would you look to initially?
I don't know. I think that now I've been so much into it that I kind of lost a lot of love for some of these activities. No matter, like, I totally understand people that do it. Like, I guess it depends on like understanding whether your problem is you not having content, right? Because regardless of how many links you have, if you don't write an article, that article is not going to rank, right? That's pretty much given, right? So I guess that first, I would always nail producing content and like getting the experience on my site right. And then if I'm in the situation where I need to like look after, something is not ranking, I would probably look into links. Tactics, I think there are thousands of them, right? I'm not sure we we have time for all of this, but I guess, again, then depending on your industry, depending on your the type of client that you have, how aggressive you can be, that's kind of your call in that sense. I have less of a widespread tip in this space. Yeah.
Well, sticking with content and perhaps not link building as much. I know that you, in your case study on the SEMrush website, said that you were using the SEMrush tool to discover your topics to write about. But what I'm curious about is, having done that initial research using the tool and getting all the content live, have you actually had any measurable results from voice search? Oh, I've thrown you a curveball there, because I know it's content, but it's voice search.
Very unprepared. I think that like we are treating these as pretty much as things like feature snippet at this stage, right? We know that in certain area we could be looking after skills or particular integration with voice search. But when it comes to long form content and articles and guides that help customer to solve their problem at any given stage of their experience, that leads to transferring money, we yet don't do anything in particular. Obviously, we have stuff that I'm pretty sure will trigger search voice results, right? And we have stuff that most likely get picked up by feature snippet, but we don't proactively work on it at that stage. And probably, again, is a matter of like how well our operation in that sense are established, right? So again, we started from just making those articles. Now we are at the stage probably where we can look at, we have a lot of content, we should probably optimize it better. And then the day we are confident that there's no more growth coming there, we look at voice. Right now, we are less, I'm pretty sure that you will be able to get some results because we get in quite a bit of feature snippet. But again, I don't know on top of my mind, no.
Well, this is yet another episode that could have gone on for 3 hours, let alone 30 minutes. And perhaps we can get Fabrizio back for another episode in the future. But unfortunately, that just about takes us to the end of episode 19 of season 2. Just time for one actionable tip from Fabrizio. So not necessarily related to what we've been discussing. Could be something else that he's been thinking about in his role. Fabrizio, what is your actionable tip for today?
I guess that like in my case is to like pretty much focus on like what, pick something specific and try to stick to that thing for a certain amount of time. And like, maybe let's go back to content. Like, it's really important sometimes that you rather than like trying to get everything at the same time, you just cover one area. Like, you know, think about 10 topics, nail it down to just one, try to do that one to, you know, really our core. And then like before you move on, like, you know, make sure that you cover this topic really exhaustively, because there could be a chance that, you know, maybe it's not performing just because you haven't gone too deep on writing more about a specific.
So content research and then repetition, and just keep on doing it. Keep on.
I think the process is key, right? Like, I think that we had less moonshots, if you have to, you know, call them like that, and more consistency. I think consistency in the process is what generally helps. Obviously, you need to get it right? You need to do the right thing, but often is an execution and operational thing together with knowing, like, you could know possibly all the, you know, and have all the SEO tips for your given industry, but if you're not consistent in a specific operation, you may still fail in delivering. And many brands do, right? Many agencies, they are very frustrated about their clients not implementing what they want, right? This actually implementing stuff and being consistent in pushing things out is possibly, you know, what I guess could be the success. You know, if you.
I want that emblazoned everywhere. I want that recorded and massively spammed out to every client everywhere.
Spammed out. It'll be released. Yes, it'll be distributed.
Just that one clip of.
Eventually.
Okay, you heard the voice of our chief spammer, Judith.
Black hat on.
You can find Fabrizio, though, over at TransferWise.com. Thank you so much for coming on today, Fabrizio. And I've been David Bain, your co-host. You can find me over at digitalmarketingradio.com.
And I've been Judith Lewis, your other co-host. And you can find me over at the Academy of Chocolate Awards judging next week, or decapit.com.
Or spam, chocolate.com. We will be recording the next episode, Season 2, Episode 20 of The Scoop, on the Semrush YouTube channel on Wednesday, the 27th of February, for a show that will focus on Quora advertising.
Joining us live will be J.D. Prater from Quora and Joe Martinez from Clicks Marketing. Sign up and watch live at semrush.com/webinars. And as you can see, we do answer questions that you send in on the day. So do sign up and do be there live. And of course, you can also catch all the previous episodes over at semrush.com/podcast.
I wonder which JD will turn up. If it's going to be JD Prater or JD Prater, I'm not sure. We'll see. Until next time, be fantabulous and do one thing that scares you. Adios.